Welcome to Tales from the Thicket. I'm Kaylin, your guide through the shadowy realms, the forgotten corners of the world, and the haunting stories that drift through the ancient pines. I grew up in the heart of southeast Texas, where gnarled, moss-covered trees stand sentinel over muddy rivers that twist like serpents through the landscape. Some things linger here, like morning mist. Some are just old wives' tales faded with time, but others carry a chilling truth, a darkness that still stirs just beneath the surface. The first tale I share with you tonight is one of the oldest and eeriest I've ever encountered, perhaps because it never truly reached its conclusion. So find a comfortable spot, dim your lights, and a word of caution: don't follow any flickering lanterns that lead you off the path. This is the story of the Pineywoods Witch. Before the name Pineywoods Witch echoed through the trees, she was just Annie Ruth Holcomb, a young wife, quiet soul, a woman who once believed her life would be simple and safe. But that was before the tragic drowning of her daughter, before her husband never came home, before the townspeople stopped knocking on her door and started crossing to the other side of the road. Loss hollowed her, the kind of loss that doesn't fade. It reshaped her face, her voice, and the way she moved through the world. And in time, it gave birth to something darker. They call her the Pineywoods Witch, a name that lingers with dread and intrigue among the townsfolk. But her story doesn't begin with spells or rituals. It begins with sorrow, a sorrow so deep it clung to her like a shadow and transformed her from a grieving woman into something else, something the woods remember. Her past echoes through the undergrowth, whispering of tragedy so profound it warped the very air around it. And the end of her story? That part's only spoken in hushed tones, if at all. Because what happened by the banks of the Sabine River left a silence too heavy to lift. There's something about these woods. They're not just haunted, they're alive, as if the trees themselves remember those who wandered too deep. And if you listen, really listen, you might hear her. One soft step, then another, deliberate, patient, unrelenting. And if you ever see a flicker of light weaving through the shadows, trust me, don't follow it. Lanterns haven't burned here in years. If you see one now, it means she's leading you somewhere you don't come back from. A place where even your name gets forgotten. In the early 1900s, the Big Thicket was a place of whispers and shadows, a scattered patch of pine stumps and dirt roads wrapped in the soft sway of cotton dresses and porch gossip. Life was hard back then, and for one woman, Annie Ruth Holcomb, it was about to become a burden almost too heavy to bear. You see, Annie had a daughter, Lila, a bright spark of life and laughter who brought joy to her every day. But tragedy struck when at just 7 years old, the little girl vanished by the banks of the Sabine River. Some say she slipped on the mossy rocks. Others swore they saw her chasing a flicker of light like a firefly just before the current took her. That night, Annie's screams pierced the air, desperate, raw, mingling with the rustling leaves and rising fog. When the sun rose, all they found was a ribbon tangled in the reeds. After the loss, her husband changed. Grief-stricken, or maybe guilty. He packed a bag and walked away without a word, leaving Annie to face the silence alone. And the house, it began to decay just like she did. She stopped answering knocks at the door. Curtains stayed drawn. The paint peeled and the weeds claimed the porch. Most days she wandered barefoot along the riverbank, whispering to shadows that danced just out of reach, as if they might whisper back. Neighbors talked, though never too loud. They noticed flickering lights in her windows, heard strange hums drifting on the wind, carrying from the woods behind her home a haunting melody that seemed to call her name. Eventually, people stopped calling her Annie at all. They called her the Witch, a name born from fear and fascination. The vibrant woman they once knew had faded, leaving only a figure wrapped in mystery, bound to the river and its secrets. A tale whispered from one generation to the next, reminding all who hear it of the fragility of joy and the darkness grief can weave. After the tragic death of her beloved daughter and the sudden abandonment by her husband, Annie became something else, a specter. Her quaint, weathered house still stood unchanged from the outside, but the woman who once filled its halls with warmth and light was dissolving into something unrecognizable. Neighbors noticed her haunting presence, frozen on the porch and silent, clothes soaked through with rain, her eyes locked on the river, as if it owed her an answer, or perhaps as if she were waiting for it to return what it had stolen. The town whispered of her decline. They said she was wasting away, that she buried her daughter's toys beneath the trees one by one, each a quiet, grieving ritual, that a cradle sat beside her bed, rocking gently in the night, though it held nothing but silence. Some claimed she wandered the woods under moonlight, barefoot, her hair wild around her shoulders, whispering to the trees like they could hear her. And sometimes it seemed they did. Her voice would rise with the wind, and the wind would answer. The townsfolk kept their distance. The mail was left at the gate. Deliveries were abandoned by the road. Yet each night, flickering lights danced behind her windows. Shadows moved where no one stood. Some said she was praying. Others whispered she had stopped praying long ago. Then came the symbols, drawn in ash across the porch, carved into the trunks of trees behind her home. No one knew what they meant, but folks began crossing themselves whenever they passed. By autumn, Annie wasn't Annie anymore. She was a shadow, a chill in the wind, a warning clothed in skin and sorrow. No one said it aloud, but all agreed. The witch had taken root, and the land would never be the same. The first to voice the rumor was Old Man Mercer, gravel-voiced and leaning against the feed store, his breath fogging in the damp morning air. "She talks to the trees," he muttered, "and sometimes they talk back." Most folks rolled their eyes, dismissing his words as the ramblings of a man who'd seen too many seasons. But not everyone turned a deaf ear. A few, those who spent sleepless nights beyond the stars, claimed they'd heard it too, rhythmic chanting on the wind, echoing through the pines like an ancient lullaby. Not just the wind, they insisted, something deeper, something alive. Then came the signs. Chickens found gutted in their coops, cats, beloved pets, gone without a trace. One boy swore he saw a ring of bones behind Annie's house, picked clean and arranged like a clock frozen in time. Children began waking in the dead of night, screaming. Sarah Jo from Pinecrest went silent for days, and when she finally spoke, her words left grown men pale. "A woman with no eyes," she whispered, "was standing at my window, saying my name." That was enough. The local pastor called for urgent prayer circles. Housewives lined their doors with salt, and still Annie said nothing. Her lights flickered like signals. Her house creaked and groaned like it remembered something no one else dared name. Then came the graveyard sightings. Someone swore they saw her barefoot, bathed in moonlight, arms raised, eyes shut, mist wrapping around her like smoke. The story spread like fire through dry brush. Annie was no longer the grieving woman at the edge of the woods. She had become something more, the Pineywoods Witch, a name now spoken with both dread and awe. It was a late autumn afternoon when the first child vanished without a trace. Her name was Clara May, 11 years old. She'd been laughing, playing near the riverbank, just a stone's throw from her home. Her joy, a sharp contrast to the cold, crisp air, settled over the thicket. Her mother had only turned her back for a moment, one moment too long. When she turned around, Clara was gone. The whole town rallied. Lanterns flickered to life like fireflies. Neighbors called her name into the trees, their voices cracked with fear. They searched the ground and found faint footprints in the mud, playful, small, and meandering, leading deeper into the thicket. In the brush they found a red ribbon caught in a branch, fluttering like a silent scream. A doll's head lay cracked in the grass, eyes open, staring, but Clara was gone. One searcher, a seasoned woodsman, said he followed the prints further than the rest. They just stopped, he said, voice low, like she was lifted off the ground or vanished. The sheriff called it a tragic accident, said she must have gotten lost in the woods, but no one believed that. Not really. The trail ended just past the spot where Lila Holcomb used to play, right where the trees grow too close together, where the air feels heavy. That night something shifted. No one let their children near the river again, not after Clara May. The laughter faded, and in its place came silence, thick, watchful, and full of questions no one dared ask aloud. People say the witch still roams the woods, not in old stories or fading memories, but now, in the cold breath on your neck when no one is near. Modern hikers have shared unsettling encounters, recordings filled with voices they never heard in real time. One group, thinking they'd captured the wind, heard a melody twist into a whisper. Campers near the river report the same thing night after night. Flashlights flicker without warning, always in the same spot. They say a figure stands just beyond sight, never moving, never close, but always there. Motion sensors trigger with nothing visible. Even the dogs refuse to go further, laying down, eyes wide, ears pinned, as if they know. And then there's the boy, the one who wandered too close and came back different. Clara May never returned, but he did. 4 days he didn't speak, just drew pictures. Trees with twisted limbs, a woman with dark flowing hair, and a little girl clutching her hand, trembling. The legend lives on, not just in whispers but in proof. And anyone who's walked the banks of the Sabine in silence will tell you something watches, something remembers. They say the river keeps secrets, a deep and ancient reservoir of untold stories. It swallows them whole, names forgotten, faces washed away, and desperate cries that dissolve beneath the reeds. That's why you don't hear her footsteps until it's far too late. That's why the trees hold their breath when she passes. Annie Ruth Holcomb never truly left the woods. Not really. Some say she wanders still, searching for her daughter, her soul forever tethered to what grief stole from her. Others believe she stopped searching, that now she waits. They call her the Pineywoods Witch, a name that echoes with fear and superstition. But once, before sorrow reshaped her, she was something else, something human, and maybe that's the scariest part of all. Have you seen her? Tell me your story in the comments before the river carries it away. Thanks for wandering into the thicket with me. If you enjoyed this tale, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss another step into the shadows. And if you have a story to share, a haunting, a strange encounter, or something that's just never made sense, I'd love to hear it. It doesn't have to be from the Big Thicket. We love all things eerie, unexplained, and unsettling. Message me, and your story might be the next to be featured. Thanks for watching.